Okay, this is another overview on the Daikin Altherma C series controller. We'll just start by setting the current time and date. So if we click on the menu button in the bottom right, we go down to set the time and date, click on OK. It's the 26th of March. (2013), and then click on OK to save that. Current time, it's 8:16. It's 24-hour clock. But you can change it to 12 hour if required. And OK that. What we'll do to start off with is we'll go into installer settings, because the first thing that you will always have to do is go into installer settings. So if we refresh ourselves on the buttons, top right is on off for space heating and for domestic hot water. So to go to, this is your space heating screen here. So to turn that on, we push this button here at the top right. To turn our hot water on, we push our home button in the bottom left. So currently says tank off. If we push that one once, it comes up with tank on, okay, and the tank screen illuminates. If we go back to our main screen and go to the main menu, we push that once. We'll go to our installer settings, because currently we're in end user settings. We always need to be in installer settings, which give us greater access to all of the functions within the system. So if we go down to information, click on OK, go down to user permission level, click on OK. It currently says end user. We can change that to installer by pushing and holding the bottom right hand button. We're currently in installer mode, so that brings us back to, if we go to the front screen, you'll see you've now got a spanner up. That means you're in installer settings. If we go into the menu, you'll now find that you've got user settings. You've now got a menu called installer settings. So if we click on installer settings, we've got language, where you can change language. System layout. We've got system layout and standard. You can tell when you're in installer settings because up here in your breadcrumb it shows an A. Okay, and the A stands for, indicates that you're in installer settings. If we click on OK or our right button, we can enter our standard. This is our system layout, which is the first thing that you will do when you set the system up. So we enter that. Our unit type, it tells us we have an LT split installed. A size 8 unit. If we go across, because this is a spare parts printed circuit board, we're able to select what unit we've got, what outdoor unit we've got connected. But normally you wouldn't be able to change that. Indoor software type, you've got type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is heating and cooling. Type 2 is heating only. Our backup heater steps, we've got 1 step, 2 steps, whether you've got a 3 or a 6 kilowatt heater. So 1 step's 3 kilowatts and 2 steps is 6. Backup heater type, 1P is single phase, 3P is 3 phase, 3PN is 3 phase and neutral, and 1/1 plus 2 is 3 phase and neutral 9 kilowatt heater. 3PN 1-2 is 6 kilowatt heater. Okay, so you've got single phase. We'll select single phase on this one. Preferential kilowatt hour rate. Basically, this is an economy tariff where you use a volt-free contact to stop and start the unit, mainly used in Germany. Unit control method, if we click on that one, we've got RT control, that's using the Daikin controller as your primary room thermostat. You've got external RT control, which is using your own external room thermostat wired into terminals 1 and 4 on the indoor unit. And LWT control, so that's leaving water temperature control. You can program the unit to operate purely on leaving water temperature. So if you give it a time period from say 6 AM till 6 PM at night, you could operate the system to run at a fixed flow temperature of 40 degrees, for example. Obviously the best type of control method would be using the Daikin controller or your external programmable room thermostat. So we'll select RT control because we don't have anything connected in on our external room thermostat. Number of leaving water temperature zones, you can select 1 or 2. Obviously that if you select 2 it will give you multiple set point control, where if you had underfloor heating and radiators you could have the system operating at 2 different flow temperature set points to maximize efficiency. Pump operation mode, we've got request and continuous. Request is probably, you've got request and continuous. I would always use continuous. The reason we want continuous is if you've got radiators connected, then even though the unit may achieve the leaving water temperature set point, the pump will continue to run, and that will ensure that the radiators are kept warm with an even temperature through them. Power saving possible, that's set to yes on the size 8. On the size 11, 14 and 16, the power saving, where the outdoor unit shuts the inverter board down, is not possible. It's only possible on the size 4, 6 and 8. Use interface location. You've got your in room or at unit. Okay, obviously if it's in the room you can use the Daikin controller as your primary room thermostat. The reason that is there is because you could have up to 2 controllers. One might be in the room as your room thermostat and one might be at the unit. Okay, so that's the end of the standard menu. That's the first menu you will see when you power a new unit up from the factory. It will bring, you won't have to go into installer settings, it will go through the quick wizard and allow you to set that up. We go into options, click on OK. We've got domestic hot water operation. Okay, yes or no. Hot water tank heater. You've got the option of horizontal booster heater or backup heater. Always choose horizontal booster heater and click on OK. If you were to choose backup heater as your heater in the hot water tank, you'll find if you go into view your sensors, it will read dash 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 because it won't be able to see a value because you have the wrong hot water cylinder sensor plugged in. Contact type main, always use CH request. And contact type additional, if you have multiple set point control, you can actually have CH space heating request or thermo on off. Always use the space heating request, the CH request. Digital I/O PCB, if we click on OK. Is it being used for an external backup heater? If we click on that, it will give us the options for a bivalent system or no. If we go down, we've got solar kit. Do you have optional solar installed? Yes or no. Alarm output. Do you want your alarm output to have a normally open contact or normally closed contact? Bottom plate heater. Do you have a bottom plate heater installed? Yes or no. Be careful on the size 4 to 8. If you do select yes and you do not have one installed, it will add it to the energy metering. If we push the bottom right hand corner once, we go back, that's the end of the options setting for digital I/O PCB. If we go down to demand PCB and click on OK, do you have a demand PCB connected? No? Yes. Okay, we don't have one installed, but if you did have a demand PCB, this one's used for, well, you could basically connect your Altherma unit to be controlled via the energy companies. So basically, if there's a high demand, they can limit the frequency of your heat pump. Same thing goes if you had a large building of Altherma units and you needed to control the maximum demand on the building. You could have current sensors and load shed on the heat pumps. So for example, when everybody's using their cookers and things like that, you'll be using a lot of electricity. At that time, you could load shed and tell all of the Altherma units to run at 40, 50, 60, 70 or 80%. External kilowatt hour meter. So the external kilowatt hour meter is only used on the size 11 to 16 outdoor units because energy monitoring is not built in. Energy monitoring is only built in on the 4, 6 and 8 kilowatt units. It's energy monitoring for your second meter. Domestic hot water pump. Do you have a domestic hot water pump installed? You can actually install your secondary return water pump in this unit, or to the unit. By doing that, you can program it as a secondary return or a disinfection shunt pump. A secondary return will give you a full 7-day programmer to program your secondary shunt pump on. Disinfection shunt pump will only bring it on during disinfection function once a week, where you take the tank to 70 degrees and hold it there for 10 minutes. So we'll select secondary return. External sensor. This external sensor is if you've got an external remote sensor. The remote sensor could be a remote sensor within the property or an outdoor air sensor. So if you do, you could have one or the other but not both. If you click on OK, is there an external outdoor air sensor installed? No. You may have an optional outdoor sensor or you may have an optional room sensor. If you do select outdoor sensor or room sensor and do not have one connected, it will come up with a fault, so be aware of that. So that's the end of the options setting. We're in A.2.2.2.1. You can see with the breadcrumbs. If we push the bottom right hand corner once, we go back one step and we can go down to capacities and click on OK. Booster heater. The booster heater in the hot water tank is 3 kilowatts. You need to tell the unit on a spare parts printed circuit board how many kilowatts backup heater step 1 is. Obviously this is important for energy monitoring. On this unit we've got 6 kilowatt heater. Stage 1 will be 3 kilowatts and stage 2 will be 3 kilowatts. So we'll set both of them to 3 kilowatts each. Okay, and bottom plate heater, it depends on what heater you've got, but they could range between 60 and 120 watts. Okay, so we click on OK, but only put a value in if you do have a bottom plate heater installed. Like I said before, it will be taken into account during energy monitoring. If we push and hold the bottom right, that's capacities screen finished. We push the bottom right hand corner button once. We're finished with our system layout, and we push it again, we go back another screen. We've got space operation. So if we go into space operation, we've got leaving water temperature settings. Leaving water temperature for our main zone. Leaving water temperature set point mode. Are you in weather dependent you can select weather dependent or absolute. Absolute is fixed. Obviously it's best to use weather dependent. Our temperature range, if we click on OK, this will allow us to select our minimum and our maximum temperatures for space heating and cooling. So on this controller it's not locked out. Our minimum in heating is 25, our maximum in heating is 55, our minimum in cooling is 5 degrees, and our maximum in cooling is 22. If you were doing underfloor cooling, you may want to lock out that lower limit at 18 degrees or so. If we push the bottom right hand corner, you can track where we are within the menu. You can see we've got A.3.1.1.2.3. Okay. If we push our back button, we can go down to weather dependent heating. This is our weather dependent curve. So with the weather dependent curve, currently it's set up between 30 and 50 degrees. Okay, we can adjust that to suit our heat emitters on the installation. So the upper limit is 45 on this job. Lower limit is 30. Outdoor ambient, we've designed it at -4 on this job. -4 and 45 degree flow. So if it was -4 outside right now, our target flow temperature through our heat emitters would be 45. And if it was 15 outside right now, our target flow temperature would be 30. If we click on OK to save that, that's our weather dependent curve set. Weather dependent cooling, we can set the same curve up so that the warmer it gets outside, the cooler the flow temperature, and the cooler it gets, the warmer the flow temperature. It's to maximize the efficiency. Modulated leaving water temperature. Allow modulation of the leaving water temperature to control the room. Basically what this is, when you're using the Daikin controller as your primary room thermostat, it's constantly monitoring the room temperature using the thermistor on the controller, located around about here. Or if you're using an optional remote sensor on your indoor, it will use that to calculate the room temperature. What automatic modulation does is, if the unit's not achieving room temperature, it will automatically adjust the flow temperature by up to 5 degrees. So if you set your weather dependent curve up too low on this controller, on the Daikin controller, it can actually compensate to try and achieve the room temperature. You do actually need to turn that on if you want to use it. So the options are yes or no. We suggest to use it, okay, just in case the curve's set a little bit too low, or you get you've set the curve up, and in our heating curve we set it to -3. If it then got colder and colder and colder and we ended up with temperatures of -12 or so, the unit could automatically add up to 5 degrees to the leaving water temperature set point to compensate for that. Emitter type, you've got slow and quick. That's the reaction time of the heat pump, okay, whether you've got radiators or underfloor. Okay, so that's the end of the main zone. If we push the bottom right hand corner button, we'll go back. We go down to delta T emitter and click on OK. This is a heating and cooling model, but if you had heating only, you would not have a cooling section down here. You can adjust the delta T, the control of the temperature difference across the flow and return. If we click on our heating delta T emitter, you can go anywhere between 3 degrees and 10 degrees. So if your radiators are designed at 10 degrees delta T, or your underfloor was, you can adjust the delta T to suit that. By default it's set to 5 degrees, and same with the cooling. If we go back, Then we go back again. We go down to room thermostat, click on OK. We're in A3.2, click on OK. As you can see, we were in A3.2. We've gone into the next screen. The 2 has come across and we've got 1 on the right hand side. Room temperature range, if we click on OK, minimum temperature in heating is 12 degrees, maximum temperature in heating is 30, minimum temperature in cooling is 15, and maximum is 35. You can put a band in so the customer can't set their room temperature up too high or can't set it too low to maintain a minimum temperature within the property. If we go back a screen, we click on the bottom right, we go down to room temperature offset. If you need to calibrate this sensor in the bottom right hand corner, that can be done by using this room temperature offset. At the moment we have no calibration, but if the controller was located in an area with no heat or being influenced by an external heat source like a radiator or a computer which is mounted too close to it, then you could put an offset in. Room temperature step. This one here is the increment at which the room temperature can be changed on the front of the controller. We've currently got it set to 1 degree, but you can change that to half a degree so that it would, at the moment, it will change from 20 degrees, 21, 22, 23. If you change it to half a degree, it would allow you to select 20.5, 21, 21.5, 22, etc. We'll do 1 degree increment because there's no need to control within half a degree. If we go back with the bottom right and go down to operation range, click on OK. Our space heating off temperature. The space heating off temperature, that's the outdoor ambient at which you wish the heat pump to be forced off. So even if you are calling for heat, so the customer sets this controller to 30 degrees heating, if the outdoor ambient goes above 25 degrees, then the unit will automatically be forced off on space heating. Domestic hot water will still operate though. The upper limit on the single fan outdoor unit size 4 to 8 is 25 degrees, and on the 11, 14 and 16 it is 35 degrees. Hot water temperature is much higher. Space cooling on temperature. This one here will only allow the space cooling to operate if the outdoor ambience above 20. That can be dropped to as low as 10 degrees, but you need to obviously be careful because if your controller is changing from heating to cooling, the mode of operation can change, so you may want to keep that a little bit higher to stop the cooling coming on if you do have automatic changeover. If we push the bottom right hand corner button once and we push it again, we go down to domestic hot water, we click on OK. Set point mode. For domestic hot water you can have reheat and schedule. So reheat will look at the tank temperature all the time and keep a base temperature in the tank at all times. And at scheduled, it will also schedule the hot water to heat it to a higher temperature as and when requested. Reheat only. It's not doing a schedule, so if you have reheat only, it won't allow you to select a scheduled time for it. And you've got scheduled only. If you want controlled heating of the hot water, you can set it to scheduled only, and that will actually control the times at which your hot water will be heated. For example, 6 o'clock in the morning, or 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and 3, 2 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We normally use scheduled and reheat, so you have your reheat set point set at maybe 40, 45 degrees, and then your storage set point at a little bit higher, maybe 48. Okay, but it depends on what the customer requires and how much water they use. If we go down to scheduled domestic hot water, we click on OK. Scheduled temperature presets, click on OK. You can have presets or custom. With presets, it actually allows you to select this three words that you can use when programming. When using presets, there's one word is comfort, another word is storage comfort, storage eco, or reheat. Storage comfort should be your highest temperature. Okay. Storage eco can be another set point at a lower temperature during medium demand, and reheat can be set as your lowest, so you keep base temperature in the tank. Just before your peak demands, you can heat the hot water up to a higher temperature, and then during medium demand you might want to use your storage eco. If you use the presets, it's a lot easier for the end user to change the preset values in 3 values rather than changing every scheduled time for every day and changing the set point temperature. So we would recommend using preset values, and we'll run through that later on. If you use custom, it will allow you to select fixed set points, okay, rather than the words storage comfort, storage eco, and reheat. So we'll leave that set to presets. Click on OK. Storage comfort set point mode, OK. Do you want absolute or weather dependent? You can have a variable storage temperature in your hot water tank, so the warmer it gets outside, the cooler the hot water temperature, and the colder it gets, the warmer the hot water temperature. This is for storage comfort mode only. The reason we have a weather dependent hot water set point is in winter the mains water comes in a lot colder, could come in as low as 4 degrees. In that case we will be diluting our domestic hot water in our hot water tank, so to overcome that we can heat our hot water to a higher temperature. Normally people set it to absolute so that we've got a fixed set point temperature in our hot water tank all year round. We click on OK. If we were using weather dependent hot water, this is our weather dependent curve. So it basically says if it was -10 right now outside, you would have a storage temperature of 70, and if it was 15 degrees or above, you would have a storage temperature of 55. You could change those curves. We always like to encourage people to store at about 48 degrees, and then once a week automatically it will do a disinfection where it takes the tank to 70 degrees and holds it there for 10 minutes. If we go back, so I would normally, if you were using weather dependent hot water, I would probably set it between 60 and 48. So if it was -10, you would have 60 degrees in your tank, and if it was 15 or above, you would have 48. We'll click on OK. End of domestic hot water schedule. We can go back. We go down to set point readout and click on OK. Set point readout, we can have temperature or conversion graphical. If you set graphical, it will convert it to the amount of people, so that when you, instead of setting a set point for your hot water, it will say how many people do you have in house, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it will increase the hot water set point temperature in accordance to that. We will try, it's a lot easier to use temperature, so we'll use temperature. The conversion to people, you can actually set the increment at which you want the hot water to heat up. So one person is 42, and then it adds this value on to heat the hot water to a higher temperature when you go from 1 person to 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, all the way up to 6 people. Normally, I think it's a lot easier for us to judge domestic hot water temperature as a temperature and not gauge it on how many people within the property. Disinfection, if we click on OK, disinfection is set to yes. It will occur on a Friday night at 11 o'clock. It will take the tank to 70 degrees and hold it there for 10 minutes. If you do want to change this setting, please change it so that the disinfection occurs during an economy tariff or just before high demand. We go back. Our maximum set point. Our maximum set point for hot water is set to 60. You can set it to the highest temperature you can set the hot water to is as follows. Okay, is 80. So obviously the end user could potentially put the hot water temperature up to 80 and leave it at that, which could result in high running costs and scalding. So if you do want to reduce the maximum temperature to 60 degrees, then you can do that. The only time at which it will not look at this value is when you've doing your disinfection. At that stage, it will override this maximum value of 60 degrees. If we click on OK, the next one's heat sources, click on OK. Backup heater, click on OK. Operation mode, it's enabled. Auto emergency operation, yes. That basically means if the outdoor unit was to fail, the backup heater can come on automatically and assist the heat pump to do the space heating. Enable backup heater step 2. Do you want second step to be in operation, or do you only want a 3 kilowatt heater? Obviously we want to always allow for the second step so that the unit can respond a lot quicker. If the power supply is not large enough, then you may have to disable the second step. Equilibrium temperature. Equilibrium temperature is the temperature at which the heat pump can no longer heat the property sufficiently, and it requires assistance via the backup heater. The default is set to 0 degrees, and we encourage you to change that to whatever the selection software tells you to set this to. Selection software is found on the extranet, so you need to register and then you can download that. Normally the equilibrium point is set at a temperature below 0. If you're unsure, don't change it. If we go back, we go down to system operation, click on OK. Auto restart. Is auto restart of the unit allowed? Always allow it. So that's yes. Is it auto restart allowed after power failure? So if the unit is in space heating or has a hot water request, when the power is restored after a power failure, the unit will turn on and operate as normal. If you've got it set to yes, leave it at yes. Power consumption control. No limitation. Continuous. Okay. So which power limitation mode is required on the system? So this is when you're using the demand board to limit the power of the outdoor unit. Type. Are you limiting it in power or current? So power in kilowatts and current in amps. If we're limiting it in current, which we would normally do if we had a current meter, we'll click on OK. We can select our values. So what's the limitation value? We might want to limit the unit to 40 amps, for example, so that when we close the contact, it won't allow the unit combined outdoor unit, booster heater and backup heater to draw more than 40 amps. If we had this value up here, the type set to kilowatts, then we would use this kilowatt value, where it would stop the unit from drawing too many kilowatts. Okay, so it would add up the capacity of the outdoor unit in kilowatts, as well as the backup heater and the booster heater, and not exceed that. It's probably a lot easier to do your demand in amps rather than kilowatts. We go down to priority, click on OK. Which electric heater has priority? None of them. So if none of them have priority, the booster heater and the backup heater can operate together if required. If the backup heater has priority, the backup heater has priority over the booster heater. And if the BSH, the booster heater, has priority, it means it's basically an electrical interlock, so they can't operate together. If you're not limited for power supply, then set that to none. Okay, so that's power consumption control complete. We've got averaging time. What's the averaging time for the outdoor temp? No averaging. You can average between no hours, 12, 24, 48 and 72 hours. So let's say we were doing a weather compensation calculation. It would do an average, if we had it set to 12 hours, it would do an average on the weather compensation every 12 hours, so it would only calculate it every 12 hours. If you have no averaging, it's constantly looking at the outdoor. So if your outdoors influenced by sun or things like that, you might want to have the averaging set to 12 or 24 hours, so it only does one calculation every hour, or adds up the averages constantly over a 24-hour period. You can force a defrost if required. Okay, just move that over to OK and click on OK to confirm, and it will force a defrost. We go back again. Commissioning. Okay, this is one of the most useful settings for you installers. Click on OK. Test run. You can test run your heating. You can test your cooling. You can test your hot water. There's also underfloor screed dry out function. So if you wanted to automatically cure your screed, you can set out a dry out schedule, and basically what it will do is you can slowly increase the temperature of the water being applied to your underfloor heating or to your underfloor, so you don't crack the screed. Okay, and that can be scheduled and done automatically. Once you select the or set the schedule, you select how many hours. So you might want 24 hours. We'll go 48 hours on the first one. And a desired temperature will start at 25 degrees. So we'll do 25 degrees for 48 hours. Then we go across. Then for the next 24 hours, we'll go across, we might want 27 degrees. Then we go across another 24 hours. And we might want 29 degrees. Another 24 hours. (31 degrees). As you can see, we're gradually heating the screed up. It's important that you use the recommendations of the underfloor heating company, because they will tell you how many degrees and what to start the dry out at. So you want to start as low as possible, and sometimes it might be the curing of the screed might require 48 hours per degree rise in temperature. Okay, so once you've got them all in, you probably want to go higher to maximum temperature required, but it might be that you use 1 degree per day or 2 degrees every 24 hours, or 48 hours, sorry, depending on how slowly or quickly you want to heat the screed up. Okay, so we click on OK, and then if you want to start the dry out, we can click on OK, do you want to start the dry out? Click on OK, and then it will start that procedure. At any time we can come back in and see where we are in the screed dry out. Okay, it says it's not started because we haven't started it. Air purge, this is the first one you should use. You can do a manual air purge or automatic. I normally do a manual air purge and manually operate the 3-port valve. If you're doing a manual air purge if you're doing a manual air purge, you pull the knob out on the 3-port valve and you manually operate it between space heating and hot water and get the air out of the indirect coil of the cylinder and bleed all of your radiators. If you do use automatic, it will automatically switch the 3-port valve between space heating and hot water to get the air out of both circuits. You can select your speed, low or high. Okay, I always select low initially, and that allows the water to move slower past the air purge valve to allow it to vent. You can select which circuit you would like to do the air purge on, whether it is your space heating or your hot water. And you can start the air purge. Do you want to start the air purge? Yes or OK or cancel. So that's the air purge function in commissioning. If we go down, we've got overview settings. If you want to change all of the field settings as overview settings, which is the quickest way to do it, you can use your overview settings screen. As you can see, you've got your first code at the top and second code here, so 0-00, 01, 02, 03, etc. Now I made that Excel for you, which is on the extranet, and I have emailed it, and the Excel spreadsheet will allow you to write the values in text and it will convert it to your overview settings sheet. So you can actually go through and change all of these values rather than change them in the text screen, which will save you a lot of time in commissioning. So you go 00, 01 and all of the overview settings for that, 02, 03, 04, 05. All field settings, or majority of them, have a breadcrumb, and that breadcrumb is related to a field setting. When you are entering the field setting in the text screen using the breadcrumb, it's automatically writing it to these field overview settings as well. So if you want to save time on site, use that Excel spreadsheet. So it goes all the way up, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, 0B, C, D, E, F, and back to 0. Click on OK. If we go down, that's the end of installer settings. After that, it will want you to restart and click on OK. The reason it wants you to restart is some field settings are set on the controller and some are set on the indoor board. In that instance, it's reading and writing from the board to the controller. And I think that's it for today. As you can see, you've got busy coming up on the controller, which means it's reinitializing. So that's all of your installer settings, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.